There are 5 things every woman ought to know about men, 5 fundamental truths. Now, not knowing these and not appreciating the importance of these will mean a great deal of pain and suffering. So in this video, in this episode, you'll discover what these 5 things are and what they mean to you. Hey, it's Shen here, the founder of Commitment Triggers and Shen Media, where we teach you how to show up as a high-value, high-status woman whom easily inspires a deep sense of emotional commitment from men. Now, I don't have to tell you that men and women are inherently different. I mean, no shit, Captain Obvious. But listen, for most of us, it's hard to even imagine what it would be like in the body of someone of the opposite sex. I mean, we can perhaps talk about it intellectually, but it's very, very difficult for us to actually have that bodily experience. And it's through these incredible differences between the sexes that cause most of our suffering, most of our pain and confusion in dating and relationships. And look, I've been guilty of this a million times, so I am definitely not pointing the finger here. My role is perhaps to give you some insights regarding men so that you can feel more successful with men and hopefully, you won't get stuck in a place that you don't want to be. Because I can tell you this, as a man, my intuitive thoughts, feelings, and actions are most likely completely different to yours as a woman. Now, that's not me being sexist, that's just how it is because of our different biochemistry. On the other hand, your biochemistry could be very similar to mine and we would share a lot of commonalities, but if you're like the 80 to 90% of all women in the world, that's probably not the case. You see, our biology dictates a lot more of our thoughts, our feelings, our behavior than we give them credit for. It's our different sexual hormones that have been shaping our brains since we were born, since before we were born. So by understanding these 5 fundamental truths about men, you are literally giving yourself a sense of confidence that you otherwise wouldn't have. I mean, not to mention, the man that you choose to be with will ultimately be more grateful to you that you understand him. Look, we all have different backgrounds and beliefs, and we all have a different idea of what an outstanding relationship is. But I can guarantee you this, every single man on earth would love to be with someone who gets him, someone who understands the inherent struggles, the challenges of a man, someone who doesn't go straight to judgment, but rather stays patient and wants to understand. And not to mention, you'll become infinitely more valuable as a woman to any man you'll ever meet. Alright, so here are the 5 things that every woman ought to know about men. Number 1, men are always responding to your energy as a woman. Men are always responding to your energy as a woman. How a man treats you is a direct reflection of the energy that you're putting out. Now, just so that you know, I'm not blaming you just because someone was, a man was being a jerk to you. I mean, it doesn't matter which way you look at it, he was still a jerk, right? But you have to be responsible for the energy that you put out into the world, because every single man will be picking up on your energy and responding to it in their unique way. Now, sometimes I tell people it's not so much that he's a jerk, but he's just a jerk to you. Now, I know that doesn't sound very nice, but listen, men will definitely show up more of a jerk if you show up as a low-value woman. They don't always mean to do so, they don't always mean to be a jerk, but they're just acting out of their natural instinct or instinctive responses. I mean, that doesn't mean it's your fault, again, but it's always good to understand the effects of your energy upon other people. Now, at the same time, these jerks will probably show up completely differently if a high-value woman was to walk by. I mean, think about it, just like yourself, right? I'm sure you can relate to this. Sometimes you don't mean to be a bitch, but in front of the right people, you just can't help but being a bitch, right? I mean, you're simply responding to their energy. That's all it is. Well, the energy that you put out into the world matters. That's the point. Because men are always responding to your energy. And this is especially true when you're meeting and dating men. You see, your energy will determine whether he would want to be with you long term or if he just wants you for something casual. Which leads me to the next point. So the next point, number 2, is it is in every man's nature to love commitment. It is in every man's nature to love commitment. Now look, it's not that men are commitment phobic, even though that they are. Let me explain this. Because I can honestly and sincerely tell you that inside of every single living man is somebody who loves to commit completely and deeply to one woman, even those who are extremely commitment phobic. Now, how can I say that? Well, because all men have the neurology, the biochemistry to commit. The act and the desire to commit is hardwired in men. In fact, I would go as far as saying that we as human beings were meant to be pair bonded and committed. But of course, the common problem is most women don't ever show up with the energy that inspires a man to commit deeper. I mean, think about it. How many times have we seen a man who goes around dating all these different women, never wanting to settle down, but one day he meets the one and it's all over, right? It happens all the time. For a man who never wants to be in a long-term relationship, now suddenly just can't help himself but want to be in that one. I mean, it's happened in movies, right? Crazy Stupid Love, Love and Other Drugs, and many other movies, because this theme is rather common in life. I want you to really get that, because all men have the hard wiring to want to commit, but they just need the right energy in front of them. And that is where you come in. So you might be wondering, what is this energy that I'm talking about that inspires a man to want to commit? Well, you'll find that out in our online Commitment Masterclass. Don't worry, it's completely free for you to attend. I'm sure there's a link somewhere down below that you can do that. Moving on to point number 3. Point number 3 is men chase 2 types of women, but only ever commit to one of these types. Now, let me ask you this. Have you ever had the experience of having a man very interested in you initially, but at a certain point, weeks or months into it, he suddenly goes cold, like bam, he's gone? Ever wondered why? Well, here's why. Men automatically and subconsciously categorize women into one of two baskets. They do this not because they're manipulating bastards, but because both men and women inherently have 2 different mating strategies. So for men, they're either seeing you as his one and only, in which he'll invest his energy and emotions in you, or he'll see you as one of many. Now, there is an astronomical difference between the 2 categories. It's huge, it's worlds apart, so you need to understand this. You see, when a man sees you as one of many, he'll still show you a great deal of interest in you. He'll pursue you. He'll give you a great deal of attention. You may think that's fantastic, but actually no. This is where a lot of women fall into this trap of actually thinking that this attention actually means something. Unfortunately, if you are one of many, all this man is interested in is to get inside your panties, and that's why they usually disappear after they have sex with you, or they'll disappear if they don't feel like sex is going to happen anytime soon. Because this is an entirely sex-driven pursuit, and for the most part, it's probably something that you want to avoid if you wanted a committed relationship. Now, however, if the man sees you as his one and only, he'll still show interest in you and pay a great deal of attention to you, but there's a lot more to it than that. He'll want to spend time with you, just for the sake of spending time with you. That's it. He'll want to be with you emotionally and be invested in you emotionally, which for a man, that is a big deal. That is huge. So how do you tell if he's interested in you as his one and only or just one of many? Well, the one thing that you need to look for is what I call indicators of commitment. Indicators of commitment. How much does he want to spend time with you just to spend time with you without the end goal of having sex? That is the question you have to ask. Now, you're probably wondering, well, how do I do that? How do I get him to see me as his one and only? What do I have to do? Well, the answer here is a concept I call high-value vulnerability. Now, you probably have heard me say this. You probably have heard me talk about high value, high status, and vulnerability. Well, that's the exact concept that you need to delve into, and we talk a lot more about that in our Commitment Control 2 program. I'm sure there's a link below that you can check that out. But remember, men chase women for 2 reasons, but men only ever commit to one of those types of women he perceives as his one and only. And if you wanted a committed relationship, that's where you want to be. Alrighty, point number 4. Sex is a cheap commodity to a man. Sex is a cheap commodity to a man. Now, if you're like most women out there who are naturally feminine in your biology, then I can promise you that the way you see sex is not how a man sees sex. After all, you have the eggs, he's got the sperm, which automatically creates problems. Now, think about this. An egg from a fertile woman fetches up to $30,000 on the open market. One single egg, that is. For a man, a bucket load of sperm is pretty much still worthless. So this difference in biology means that men see sex somewhat differently to women, and you have to understand this. One of the biggest and most important insights you need to understand is that for a man, love and sex are 2 different and separate processes. So if you were to examine a feminine woman's brain through an MRI scan, you see that the part of her brain that lights up for sex is quite similar to the part of her brain that lights up for love. Now, there's a big overlap here, whereas for most masculine men, their brains are shaped by masculine hormones, and that overlap is very small. In other words, the part of his brain that lights up for sex, when he thinks about sex, is very different to the parts of his brain that light up for love. Now, what does that mean for you? Well, think about this. It means that men, by default, separate how they think about love and sex. So don't ever assume that by having sex with a man that he'll love you more, and don't ever assume that if he loved you, then he would have sex with you. These are 2 very different neurological pathways for a man. So think about the implications of this. Think about it. We live in a world where sex is rather everywhere and very easily accessible. I mean, any man with his paycheck in his pocket can have access to sex almost guaranteed. I mean, any man with a decent internet connection can access the plethora of free porn that is floating above us in the clouds, right? So to men, sex has become rather a commodity. It has become really, really cheap. The value of sex for the sake of sex is rock bottom, and you see, men may chase after sex, but they won't value it. Okay, it doesn't mean anything to them. They'll chase after sex, but they won't value it. So, what does that mean to you as a woman? Well, firstly, your value to a man is not that you can offer him sex. But what is the value to a man, right? This brings me to the last point. Point number 5. Your ultimate value to a man is not what you can do for him. Your ultimate value and your ultimate gift to a man is your energy. Okay? Look, men's lives are actually quite boring. The masculine energy is a dead energy. It's not alive like the feminine. You as a woman, you can light up a man's life infinitely more so than any of his projects, deadlines, world championships, or ambitions to dominate the world or the universe. I mean, that is your gift. That is what most men would trade everything in the world for. It's that spark of life that they can never obtain from, their masculine domain, their masculine lives, because everything that lives in the masculine is emotionally dead. A man may, thrive in that environment and really feed off that sense of mission, sense of achievement, but nothing will ever compare to that fire that a woman can plant in his heart. And your job is to plant that fire with your energy. And once you do, nothing else will matter. So, these are the 5 points. Just to recap, the 5 things you need to understand about men are: men are always responding to your energy as a woman. Number 2, it's in every man's nature to love commitment. Point number 3, men chase 2 types of women, but only commit to one of these types. Number 4, sex is rather cheap commodity to a man. Number 5, your ultimate value to a man is not what you can do for him. Your ultimate value and your ultimate gift to a man is your energy. So, think about the implications of these 5 fundamental truths about men. Think about how these would really affect your life or your preconceived ideas about men, love, and relationships. Now, we have a whole 2-week program, home study coaching course on understanding men. I mean, the program is literally called Understanding Men because we go deep into the psychology of men so that you can understand and easily predict what your man is thinking and feeling. This is usually the first program I recommend women take because here's what I believe. Knowledge is power. And knowledge in man is, of course, power with men. And through this, through the special exercises we put together in the program, you too can have that understanding of men that most women never get. Now, I'm sure there's a link down below somewhere where you can find out more details about this program. And just think about this. One of our existing members came back and told us that this is the training program that every woman needs to go through. She told us that she wished that she had gone through this program 22 years earlier herself. So it's worth your time to check it out. Now, whilst I've got you here, let me ask you, do you know exactly what you need to do in order for a man to want to commit to you? Do you know exactly what has to happen for him to see you as his one and only? Well, the answers to these questions will be revealed in future episodes of Commitment Triggers. So make sure you stay subscribed and stay tuned in. If you haven't signed up to my newsletter or email list, this is a good time to do so. So head over to commitmenttriggers.com. That's commitmenttriggers.com. Now, I want you to do some reflection and leave a comment below to share with us what key ideas or insights really resonated with you from this episode. How will these ideas affect your life and your interactions with your man? Now, I'd love to hear your thoughts. And until next time, make sure you look after yourself, give yourself the resources you need so that you can show up as the high-value, high-status woman you are meant to be. All right, this is Shen from Commitment Triggers. I'll talk to you real soon.